I wanted to start today by sharing one of my favorite stories about my mom.
It was just my mom and I. We were flying to New York City for a couple of days for a sort of mother-son vacation. I was 9 years old at the time. Our trip began when we boarded the plane at about 8 p.m. We just sat there and waited for an hour, and then another hour, to eventually took off around 10. For me and my mom, when the plane took off, it was sort of this moment where we were like, finally. After hours of sitting still, our trip was finally beginning. However, after only 2 hours in the air, our pilot came over the loudspeaker and notified us that we'd be landing in Philadelphia due to the fact that it was his curfew, which recently meant that he legally had to land the plane because of how long he'd been on the ship. When the plane landed, we were a bit upset. We had already waited for hours to take off, and we had hotel reservations for the night in New York City. It now looked as if we were going to be spending the night in Philadelphia. As we thought about the plan, I began listening to the man in front of us, talking to his wife on the phone about renting a car and driving to New York that night. When the man hung up, I looked back over at my mom, expecting her to still be thinking through our plans for staying in Philadelphia. Instead, I was surprised to see that she was listening to the man as well. I knew exactly what she was thinking. I knew what I was thinking. It's a horrible idea. Then my mom popped up and asked, "Hey, can we rent a car with you?" I knew she was going to ask him. It was spontaneous, awkward, and funny, all at the same time. It was my mom. The man ended up saying yes, although not without hesitation. It was simple. By splitting the rental car, we wouldn't have to pay for a hotel in Philadelphia, and we'd be able to make it to our hotel in New York that night. The only downside is that we had to rent the car with a complete stranger. The guy turned out to be okay. He was some kind of New York businessman who did seem to appreciate my mom, peppered him with questions, and asked him to post a couple of photos with me. I knew she was gathering evidence in case there was stranger danger, but clearly those principles are already been ignored. But that's what we made it to our ultimate destination, New York City. And the rest of the trip was great. We saw the Statue of Liberty, went to Times Square, and took in the skyline view from the top of the Empire State Building. I told the same story to an audience nearly 5 years ago. It's one of my favorite memories, which is why it's the memory I chose to share at my mom's funeral on November 2012. Growing up, my mom was the parent that I lived with since my parents were divorced and my dad worked in Atlanta. She was the one who drove me to school, took me to practice, and made dinners at night. She was the most important person in my life. And it was 2 weeks after my 13th birthday that she died. Life without my mom began in an unlikely place, a Target parking lot. My brother, sister, dad, and I were pulling into a parking space when my dad received a phone call and stepped out of the car. It was routine. My dad always stepped aside to take any work calls. But this was different. His body language indicated shock and that something was wrong. His facial expressions were serious. My dad then ended the phone call, got back in the car, and immediately started backing out, giving no reason or explanation for why we were leaving or where we were going. When I asked, he responded that we were going back to our hotel room. We stayed in hotels when Dad flew home from Atlanta every weekend. The car ride was silent, and I remember feeling sick, although it wasn't something I felt before. It was something completely different, something since that day I haven't felt again. Once in the room, everyone sat down and no one talked. We all knew that something was wrong. Then my dad broke his silence. "Kids, I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your mother passed away." That was the first thing my dad said, and he used those exact words. It was mother, not mom, and passed away, not died. I remember that next hour very clearly. It was all crying. I was 13, my brother and sister were 10, so within seconds of my dad telling us, we all began sobbing until we were too tired to cry anymore. And then the room fell silent for over an hour as we tried to comprehend the magnitude of the loss and what it would mean for each of us. Mom died on a Saturday, and her funeral was 5 days later, on a Thursday. Within those 5 days, a lot went through my head. When she first died, although it's a cliche, her death seemed unreal. It hadn't been until that 5-day period I would ever see, hear, or talk to my mom again. In fact, to summarize the thoughts I had in those 5 days into one sentence, it would be this: I miss my mom. I miss the vacations we went on, whether it was riding a high in Arizona and seeing the Grand Canyon, or skiing in Colorado. Within those 5 days, I thought back on the Christmases we spent together, and the Thanksgivings, and the Easters, and the New Year's, and the birthdays, and I realized I would never celebrate any of these with her again. but I missed the little things the most. I missed her personality and her presence. Within those 5 days, I sat in my room and went through everything, trying to find something that reminded me of her, something that seemingly kept her alive. So I read through our text together. I scrolled all the way to the top, going as far back through our text as possible, only to then make my way back down to the bottom, reading every message along the way. This, to me, is the most accurate representation of what she was like, and texts that were once considered unimportant all of a sudden became things that I read daily, up until her funeral. And I listened to voicemails she left me because, besides a few videos we had, it was the only way I could still hear her voice. Things I had never considered important in my life all of a sudden became things I missed immediately upon her death. I missed our routines, like driving to school in the morning and watching The Office on Friday nights, and her shouting, "Good night, buddy," up the stairwell to my room before she went to bed every night. After my mom's funeral, things were different. For starters, my dad would film, and we lived with him full time. But Mom was completely absent. And our daily routines, the little things with her, were completely gone. No more car rides, no more TV time, no more "good night, buddies," and no more staff emails like this that I would disregard and call weird. It was only after my mom's death I realized I had taken her for granted in so many ways. Especially her sense of humor. She was so funny. Besides asking a complete stranger to rent a car, she always had funny stories to tell and was never afraid to embarrass herself. Yes, I definitely took her humor side for granted. Things changed in school as well. When everyone in class made cards for their moms for Mother's Day, I made a card for my grandma. My friends were reluctant to talk about their moms in front of me anymore. My whole life had changed, and even now, her death still affects my daily life. When people ask me about my parents, I respond by talking about my dad, which so implies I only have one parent still alive. And when I see my friends and the close relationships that they have with their moms, I think to myself how cool that would be, and how my mom and I would definitely be like that. It's been nearly 5 years since my mom has died, and like I said, a lot has changed. As years have passed, probably the most prominent change I've noticed is how much I've forgotten before my mom was alive. Sure, I have photos from the holidays, the Christmases and the Thanksgivings and the Easters, but nothing from our day-to-day lives and the moments that really matter. The time my mom and I were with a stranger is a moment that matters greatly to me, yet I have almost no record of the experience. It was only after my mom's death that I started to realize how ironic my situation was. The moments that I have the most photos of were the moments that I missed the least, while I had no record of the memories and experiences that I missed the most. I also started questioning the usefulness of photos. As I look back at my pictures, I realized that they all featured people smiling. Yet when I look back at my childhood, I have zero recollection of people smiling all the time, 24/7. And I began to think to myself, this isn't accurate at all. The photos of all the smiling people just weren't helpful to me when trying to accurately recollect specific memories in my head. And finally, besides often being inaccurate, photos lack detail. They don't show you your full surroundings or give you the sounds you're hearing in a certain moment. These are things that only a video can do. And if you were to take a video and begin talking to the camera, you now also have a way to see what you were saying, thinking, and feeling in a particular moment. After realizing all these things, I began taking a different approach to capturing and chronicling my life. Now, I bought a GoPro in 2015 from the crazy stunts I thought I would do and adventures I thought I would go on in my coming high school and college years. But the camera sat in my closet for nearly a year. Starting last August, though, I began to use the GoPro more and more. The camera was my solution to my memory's dilemma, my way of capturing the more ordinary moments of my life, the stuff I knew I would probably otherwise forget. It was lightweight and small and controlled hours of footage. It was perfect. I didn't necessarily record footage every day, but I had the camera with me on most days and would record some of the more mundane things like me on the train or on my bike, in times when I was alone with friends and with family. I would take panoramic shots to record my surroundings, would point the camera towards the people I was with, and even point the camera at myself. As I watch the videos now, I love them. I can vividly see what I did on many days, where I was, who I was with, what I looked like. The videos, they're essentially time capsules, filled with moments with my friends, times with my family, and times when I was alone, where there's enough information to make my moments, big and small, clear and lasting memories. So going forward, I encourage you all to document your lives, although change the way you document. First, start taking more videos. People don't have to be smiling in all of your videos. And when you begin recording at random times, you'll actually start capturing people smiling genuinely versus the forced smiles we usually get. Second, record moments with friends, family, and self that are accurate and sincere. People don't have to be smiling off your videos, and when you begin recording at random times, you'll actually start capturing people smiling genuinely versus the forced smiles that we usually get. All these things will give you so much more detail looking back. And finally, capture times in your life that you take for granted. Your routine occurrences and things you would think to record. It was when eulogizing my mom that I realized that the moment I missed the most was when I never thought to capture, since it wasn't some big event compared to what we did the rest of the trip, which, like I said, includes stops at all the major tourist destinations. So record the most normal and seemingly insignificant events in your lives, because I can tell you, they may very well prove to be the most significant. As for the videos, I think you'll see it. It's been a success. Thank you.
Tommy, we have to show Tommy where California is on the map.
Where did he think it was?